Copake Special Town Board Meeting, Saturday, April 16th, 2011.
America, and to the republic which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Who would like to start?
You, me? You, me? Okay, I guess I'll start.
Yeah.
As we all know, we have an issue regarding the removal of some trees involving the County Route 7A project. I guess for me, and I spent numerous hours poring over documents, I have some questions regarding what I consider to be good governance and procedural things that have happened here. We don't have Tal with us today, which is unfortunate, but I do appreciate the fact that he recognizes the conflict, given that he is the county attorney and can't be here.
Attorney.
Right, deputy county attorney.
Or assistant, excuse me.
But we have a head of Public Works who has a prior relationship with a firm involved in this project, which is Clow Harbor. We have an early, I'd say back in '03, there was a private meeting here involving Angelo, DPW, Larry, that sort of sets the stage for all this. I've seen engineers' notes regarding this project that's discussing the trees and the need to get the public to buy into this. At the time when Ms. Winchell Sweeney came before us, I did contact Art Bear. I received a reply email stressing that their concern is strictly for public safety and liability based on expert analysis of the situation. That's left me with some questions, and I'm glad you're here today, Mr. Robinson, because I'm curious as to what studies and protocol were followed to determine the site distance issue. There are also two other site distance issues along this same route which are not currently being addressed. We have an illegal committee meeting somewhere in this that was not publicly noticed and held at a restaurant. I've seen inconsistencies regarding specifically which trees are causing the site distance problem. We've had possibly commitments made by individuals who are in no position to do so. I've seen an email from a supervisor offering a landscaping plan to Miss Susan Winchell Sweeney. I'm kind of curious in what capacity that offer was made.
Well, I'll answer that. That was a suggestion.
Okay. I guess my question is, was he looking for a job, or was he offering services for free, or it just...
It was only a suggestion.
Okay.
That's it.
We have an employee suggesting to Miss Winchell Sweeney that she be nice and her trees won't be cut down. And now I see the county claiming New York State DOT is making them do this, which seems to be in direct opposition to DOT's Green Light program, which seeks to minimize impact to the environment and to advance sustainable practices. So I guess at this point I've been left with a lot of questions, some of them involving the cost of this project and exactly what portion of this project is dedicated to the removal of trees, and how decisions are being made at the county level.
Okay.
My only concerns is that I feel that the county and Ms. Sweeney should have been some type of resolution, and only on what I have in front of me now. I'm not an expert, but I think the county could have stepped forward a little bit more and provided either the fence or the trees. I mean, I don't see anything signed by any county attorneys that stipulate any type of an agreement, or I don't really see anything from Mr. Robinson's office, so I don't I need a little bit more information here. You have a
All
lot
right,
more
let me-
information.
let
Which
me-
I've just gotten in the past
Yeah,
24
I don't
hours, and
have
I
that,
will be
so-
happy to forward
I
any
mean-
and all of that to you, Dan.
All right, let me say something here. The original game plan, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Robinson, was to reimburse Mrs. Sweeney for a portion of the land regarding the trees. It came to a point at the county where there was consideration for taking the property by eminent domain. I have to give Mr. Robinson credit. We tried to work with Mrs. Sweeney. I had a meeting here which was attended by Ms. Sweeney, myself. I think you and Dean were here. Councilman Sachs was there. The minority leader, Doug McGivney, was there. I invited the majority leader, but she was ill, couldn't attend. And we left that meeting under the understanding that Ms. Sweeney and the county would try to come to some amicable agreement or solution. I know the county offered to pay Ms. Sweeney $15,000, Dave, for the piece of land, and in that neighborhood, and absorb the cost of planting new trees further back. The one thing you,
Is the
Ms. Sweeney, hold on, let me
15,000 not the replacement value of the screening of the trees?
No, no,
Or is
no,
that
no.
the actual
15,000
purpose, that's the actual purchase of the piece of property?
That was,
That's not-
if the county took it by eminent domain, that was, I think, the assessed value, Dave?
Would like to address the board?
Yeah. Well, let me just finish up. I know that when you brought up about the suggestion, Ms. Sweeney came in my office and was talking to me about it, and that was what it was. I suggested perhaps you would consider a privacy fence. I mean, that's something you could consider if there's no agreement with the trees. And I would, I just said that's just something you should consider.
Right.
So, Dave, go ahead. Yes.
Started the thing without even saying what the meeting was about and just jumped into the trees, so I'd kind of like to know a synopsis of, I'm sorry, but I thought this thing had been settled, and now all of a sudden, as the person who rained into it, then I thought that thing had been settled down, now all of a sudden they did it, it's a different thing.
I'll tell you what,
So I just would just like to scenario, you guys.
when the plans for this project first were approved, Dave, jump in and correct me if I'm wrong, were approved by the state, because it's got to be approved by state DOT, they wanted all the trees removed. Their engineers or whoever determined there was a site distance problem. After our meetings, Dave went back to the state to try to find some kind of either halfway point, and at that time, the state agreed to back off to the point of the trees that are on county property had to be removed, and the other trees had to be trimmed back to the property line. So, Dave, I'll let you go on, because you've got all the facts and figures.
The county's been working on this project since about 2001. We've been in the design stage for this project for about 8 years. Between 2008 and 2009, the county began acquiring the properties, temporary and permanent easements that were needed for the project. We had several acquisitions that we needed through the entire corridor. You all know what corridor we're talking about for the project, and also the replacement of the ground dam. Acquisitions and easements that were obtained were for the purpose of, in general, safety, widening the shoulders, installing guide rail, installing culverts, maintaining drainage easements, and in this case, to correct what's called a non-conforming situation, which is a site distance that's substandard other than is needed by the regulations. For each easement that we obtained, whether it was permanent or temporary, for each property that we purchased, a certified appraisal was done. The appraisal was reviewed by New York State DOT, and then we had authorization to make the offer. In the case of Ms. Sweeney's property, you were talking about the value of the offer that was made. I'm going to go by memory, and I would be very close. The property acquisition was going to be approximately 10 foot wide by 140 feet long, so it's about 1,400 feet. The value of the land itself was about $1,000. The value of the aesthetics from the trees was about $15,000. So the total offer was in the range of $16,000 to $17,000. The county approached the landowner with this offer. There was resistance, and we began discussing other options. If before all negotiations basically broke off, I was at a point with the county where I was willing to purchase the land, remove the trees out of our own funds. The $17,000 or $16,000 for the trees basically also represented the value of replanting trees. I was willing to also replant trees. I would allow the landowner to take the $1,000 for the land, take the $16,000 or $17,000 for the value of the aesthetics of the screening, plant a new row of trees on her property, plant fence on her, or install a fence on her property. Any type of screening that the landowner wanted, I was open to. The offer that was made back to the county, so far as the plantings was concerned, was to replace what is there with 30-foot tall trees that came out of our meeting. We contacted contractors, nursery businesses that would be able to supply those types of trees, that type of service. One tree was going to be in the neighborhood of $12,000. So to do the entire row was just something that
Cost prohibitive.
It would be cost prohibitive. It wouldn't be practical for something along those lines. But we're still willing to do, reasonable sized plantings, whatever they might be. We weren't able to come to an agreement for the acquisition of the property, for a screening that was acceptable to the landowner. In the meantime, our dates and deadlines are marching on. And with a federal project like this, we have to meet certain dates. I have to have a project, I have to have all property acquired by a certain date in the project. I have to have the project to bid by a certain date. I have to have contracts awarded and under construction by a certain date. If I miss these dates, the funding for this project becomes what's called defunded. The money is actually taken away. And there's nothing silly about this. They're serious. It has been done, and it does happen. So we met with the DOT in November of 2009 to talk about all the acquisitions. Grounds Dam was one of them. And in that regard, we did move ahead.